Today I read something thanks to one of my viewers, Pete, who sent me this story that proves that they are lying. And who is they, Michael? Well, they are mainly people related to the real estate industry, meaning real estate agents and brokers and mortgage brokers and lenders. This story that Pete sent me is talking about how the real estate industry is basically begging the Fed at this point to stop with the interest rate hikes and hold off on unwinding their balance sheet because they're afraid that the housing market is going to take too much of a hit. And this is what I mean about this is how we know they're lying, because you have a lot of people that are telling you, oh, it's still a great time to buy a house, and oh, you can go ahead and get in today and refinance later and do all of these flips and gymnastics with buying your house, but they won't tell you that the industry is reeling right now and people are not making the money that they used to a year ago, 2 years ago, because the transactions have fallen off of a cliff. And secretly, they are reeling in the background and trying to make it so that people don't stop buying homes, guys. And at the same time, they are trying to lobby the Fed to stop with the interest rate hikes because it's just going to cause too much damage to the market. And by the way, today we are in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'll get to some of the stats on the local area and stuff later in the video like I have been, but I want to cover this because it's very important. Now, one thing that they're blaming this on is they're saying, well, you guys have to stop with this because of the shortage of inventory, and the higher the interest rates go, then the lower the inventory, then we're likely to have. However, we're seeing inventory creep up, guys, and the reason for that is because the inventory that is coming online is not selling because nobody can afford to buy at these rates combined with these prices. You have the National Association of Home Builders, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and the National Association of Realtors wrote a letter to convey profound concern shared among our collective memberships that ongoing market uncertainty about the Fed's rate path is contributing to recent interest rate hikes and volatility. And they're asking the Fed not to contemplate further rate hikes and to not actively sell its holdings of mortgage securities, at least until the housing market has stabilized. So they're begging the Fed to stop this because they're worried that people are just going to continue to stop buying, guys. And that's exactly what's going to happen under these circumstances. Here's what else it says. We urge the Fed to take these simple steps to ensure that the sector does not precipitate the hard landing the Fed has tried so hard to avoid. Now, I, for one, don't think that this is really the path that needs to be taken, because the reason why the real estate industry is promoting this and basically asking for this is so they can get back to work and continue making their commissions, because they're not able to make a living right now. And look, guys, I understand that everybody needs to make a living, and as a former real estate agent, somebody that worked in the industry day in and day out, it's important to be able to make money. But the reality is that if there's a will, there's a way, and people that really are resilient in the industry will find a way to make money. I mean, I started during the housing crash, and nobody wanted to buy back then because everybody who could buy knew that prices would probably continue to fall, and everybody who wanted to buy couldn't because the economy was upside down. And we had a ton of houses for sale. The inventory was there. So, they're blaming this on low inventory and that's why things aren't moving. No, guys, it's because the home prices with these rates are absolutely ridiculous and people can't afford it. That's the reality of what it really is. And even if they lower interest rates, that's not going to help affordability much with all-time high prices. So as someone who kind of lived through that last situation and saw that when we had high inventory, things still weren't moving, that's not going to fix much. What it would really do right now is it would help bring prices down, which would ultimately bring affordability back. But we would need to see a ton of inventory come online to be able to inch affordability in the right direction if interest rates were to stay the same. So, and that's where this kind of comes in, right? Because if more pain comes in the economy and people need to sell their home for whatever reason, then that brings more inventory online. It's just unfortunate that it comes from a distressed source, that people that need to sell, not because they want to, but they have to, end up selling. I have to admit, guys, it's a little bit chilly over here in Little Rock today. It's only like 60 degrees, and I feel like the 60 degrees here feels a lot colder than it does when you're in 60 degrees in California by the Bay Area. And still got the tank top on. It's nice and sunny outside. If it wasn't for the wind, it would feel pretty nice, but the wind makes it feel a little chilly, but I'll tough it out. Now, to me, the most unfortunate thing about this fact that we're all being lied to by the real estate industry as a whole is the fact that first-time home buyers are going to be the ones to take the brunt of this. Because check this out. After a new report from Zillow just came out, literally half of the people who have been buying homes in the first half of 2023 are 50% made up of first-time home buyers. You would say, well, how is that possible, Michael? Because, you know, first-time home buyers usually don't have a lot of money. Well, just like I've talked to many other real estate professionals and people on YouTube during my trip here, it all comes down to one thing, guys: the bank of mom and dad. The bank of mom and dad is helping people get into homes right now, and whether or not that's actually helping them in the long run or not is yet to be seen. Because on the one hand, if you have a rich baby boomer parent that gives their millennial children or Gen Z children money to buy a house, a huge down payment, or just buys the house for them, whatever, and the home prices go down, maybe that person who bought the house won't necessarily feel as much pain or as much impact from that because they didn't really have to earn it to begin with. It's mom and dad's money, and maybe they just won't care. But they will care if they go to sell it for some reason and they're not able to without coming to the closing table with a check, unless the bank of mom and dad's going to step in and help with that too. And this is up pretty substantially, guys. When you have half of all people buying right now first-time home buyers, okay, just a year ago it was 45%, and the year before that it was only 37%. So it has climbed substantially in the last 2 years. And they're saying that the share of first-time home buyers hasn't been this high since 2010, when we had the first-time home buyer tax credit in place in order to basically convince people to buy homes, because nobody wanted to buy back then because we were still in the midst of a housing crash. And so what this is doing, if you ask me, is it's basically putting all these first-time home buyers in a home at an all-time high price at decades high interest rates and saying, here you go. Well, hopefully it all works out and there's going to be no downturn for you. So according to this Zillow report, they're saying that 60% of these first-time home buyers are either tapping the bank of mom and dad or their own savings or both. So who knows what's happening with the other 40%. And here's the other problem with people's mentality when it comes to buying a house. Apparently, Zillow has a new filter, and I haven't seen this yet. It's called Anew, A-N-E-W. And it's supposed to help people search for homes based on a monthly payment rather than the home price. Now, on the one hand, this makes sense because lenders will qualify you based on your monthly payment, not the home price. And of course, the monthly payment can change based on the property. If one property has an HOA fee and the other one doesn't, your payment's going to be higher. If your property taxes on this house are higher than the other one, your payment will be higher, and so on and so forth. So on the one hand, it does make sense to be able to search based on a monthly payment, but the problem with it to me is it already gives, especially first-time home buyers, the wrong idea, okay? It gives you the idea that the only thing that matters is, can I afford the monthly payment? And that's not the right way to look at purchasing a home, because the price is something that can never be changed, guys. I know a bunch of you who watch me all the time have heard me say this a bunch of times. I'm saying it again. You can never change the purchase price. You can always change the interest rate later on. So don't be fooled by this idea that the only thing that matters is if I can afford the monthly payment, because guess what, guys? That monthly payment is also going to go up. A lot of people think that when they buy a house that the monthly payment's going to remain the same forever, because that's one of the things that's touted as being a pro instead of a con of home ownership versus renting, that your payment remains the same. Well, yeah, only your fixed principal and interest part of the mortgage is fixed. The rest of it is subject to go up. Property taxes go up. Homeowners insurance goes up. HOA dues goes up. House maintenance goes up. None of that stuff ever goes down. So to sit there and think that, well, I can afford this payment, and that's the reason that I'm going to buy this house, could be a big mistake. And in Zillow's research, they also found out that 45% of conventional primary home borrowers bought points to ease monthly costs, compared to 30% who did that in 2021. So almost half of these buyers are also buying down points to lower their interest rate, which can be a good thing if you're going to stay in the house for a long time. That can save you money over the long run. Now here we have a house for rent, 4-bed, 2.5 bath for $1,850 per month, and they bought this house back in 2018 for $188,000, not so bad, and the property tax bill here is also very reasonable at about $2,000 per year. However, this house has been sitting on the market for 2 months now, which is quite a long time for a rental, and they've only cut the price by about $100, which suggests that the house is actually too expensive, because when you look at what the average rent price is for a house here in Little Rock, it's only about $1,500 a month. This is still well above what you could probably get somewhere else in Little Rock, which is why it's probably still sitting here vacant. And every month that this house sits vacant, the landlord loses money. But in comparison, you can only get about a studio apartment in Miami Beach, where I live, for this price. So in that sense, it's a good deal. Now I will say, if there's any people who are doing this on their own without tapping the bank of mom and dad, congratulations to you, because you are obviously an extremely hard worker, because in order to be able to buy a home in this environment, you have to be, guys. You have to have saved a lot of money, you have to have very good credit, you have to have a good income, be able to afford homes at these prices today, and anybody who's doing that right now, I commend you. Not for buying a house at the top of the market, but for being in such a good financial position that you're able to do it without the help of the bank of mom and dad. And all I can say to people who are buying right now is I hope you can hang on for the long term, because defaults are coming, guys. In case you missed my video yesterday, go check it out. But I covered in there how the foreclosure filings are starting to ramp up across the country, and there's literally like 125,000 foreclosure filings being processed at this very moment, and that's just the beginning. You know, we haven't even seen a hard landing from this recession yet, or things get really bad where the unemployment rate really ticks up. That's happening right now just because of all the stimulus programs being over with. Never mind the fact that we haven't actually felt any real pain from this recession yet. So get ready, guys. Get ready for a lot of this to happen. That's why I'm saying, if you're going to buy right now, I just hope that you can hold on. And what I mean by holding on is just being able to stick with your home for the long term, at least the next 10 to 15 years, and ride out whatever we're going to be going through. And if you do that, you'll be glad that you did, because you'll probably come out ahead in the end, and you'll have your home halfway paid off if you have a 30-year mortgage, or maybe all the way paid off if you're diligent and make extra principal payments. And by the way, anybody who does need to buy or sell a home right now, which I know is not that many people, but some people do, feel free to use the link in my description below. I always have this available to you guys as a free service. If you need an agent, I can set you up with somebody in all 50 states across the country. It's a completely free service to you. It benefits you and it benefits the channel, and I appreciate you using it. Now let's talk about Little Rock for a little while. It's a nice area, guys. Like, never been here before. It's been my first time to these couple of states of Oklahoma and Arkansas, and I say it's pretty nice here for what you can get for the money, guys. I mean, look at this neighborhood. How much do you think these homes cost? Well, they go for anywhere between about $180,000 to $400,000 in this neighborhood right here. And as you can see, it's clean, it's safe, it's peaceful. There's no trash anywhere. There's no bums on the street. There's no homeless. There's no tents on the sidewalk. Nothing like that. In Little Rock in general, the median home price here is still $247,000, and that's up about 7.5% year over year. And Little Rock would be one of these places that I would actually say maybe it would still be okay to buy right now, and here's why. Because when we look at the overvaluation percentage on the ReVenture app, it only says it's overvalued by about 9.5% here. That's not really that bad. So even if the economy takes a turn for the worse, and we do have, home prices go down by 20 or 30%, and this area only goes down by 10, you're not losing that much by that happening. You pay $250K for a house, let's say, and it goes down by $25,000. Well, it's still worth $225K. And if you're not planning on selling it anytime soon, who cares? Now, I would never encourage people to be underwater on their homes. That's obviously not a good thing, but it's much better to be $25,000 underwater on the home than, $300,000 underwater or whatever in some of these areas where home prices absolutely exploded and have the higher potential to go down by more. And the other thing is this is another reason I would say this could be a good area to buy, is because the house payment as the percentage of median income here is still 27%. That's literally in the Goldilocks zone of where it should be in terms of affordability, guys. So right here in Little Rock, Arkansas, it is still a very affordable place to live, even for the average Joe that lives and works here. People can afford these houses. And the surprising thing is, even though the inventory situation here is still very low, it's far below where it was 5-6 years ago, it's still relatively affordable. That's the interesting thing about this area. And I'm just kind of passing through all these areas. I drive in, I check into my hotel, I have some food, I edit my videos, and then the next day I come out here and I shoot a video in the neighborhood and I leave and do it all over again. So I haven't had a whole lot of time to see oh, is this a good place to live, or what's the job situation? Because people have been asking me about things like that, and it's I don't know, guys, I have no idea. I'm just passing through. I don't even have the time to do the research and figure that out. But if it's a place you're interested in, you should do that research, because first impression, I'll tell you what, guys, here in Oklahoma City, seem like you get a lot for your money in terms of, nice neighborhood, a decent house, even in Amarillo, Texas, clean, safe. Crime doesn't seem to be a huge issue. You don't see a huge homeless population anywhere. Homes are still affordable. Seems like they have a lot going for it in places like this. And you're not going to get as freezing of winters as get in the Midwest, because you're kind of in the southern part of the country here. I'm sure it still gets cold. Maybe they still get a little bit of snow, but it's not going to be like living in northern Illinois where I was from. And speaking of affordability, here's something else I saw today that I thought was interesting. There's a law firm called Atticus. They did research recently on the average American's pay and what they need to make financially in order to feel secure. And it basically determined that people need to make about roughly $75,000 a year in order to feel financially secure. And the interesting thing is that pretty much matches up with the US Census data of the average household income. The one thing I question about that is okay, if the US household income is about $75,000 a year, but people say they need to make $75,000 a year to feel financially secure, well, then that means each person, if it's a dual income household, will need to make that to feel financially secure, right? Not just the whole household, which is the more realistic picture of the average America. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is to see how this relates to real estate. So if people need to make $75,000 a year to feel financially secure, well, how much of a house can you afford if that's your pay? Well, let's take a look. I'm using Zillow's affordability calculator here, and I just punched in some numbers. So I put in annual income, $75,000, monthly debt payments, $500, which is probably generous just because most people's car payment's probably that much, and that's not even including your other debts like a credit card bill or medical debt or anything else. But let's just, give them the benefit of the doubt. People don't have a lot of debt. They're looking to buy a house. They're being financially responsible. Only have $500 a month, okay? Then the down payment, 17 grand. Well, at a 7.5% interest rate and a 30-year mortgage, that means you can only afford a house of $236,000, guys. Well, there's not very many places where that fits the bill. Yeah, here it does actually. There's houses in this neighborhood that cost that much and you could easily buy, but it doesn't give you much room to move to other places in the country. You kind of have to stick to the most affordable areas if you want to become a homeowner at that median income. And this is why we've seen home sales fall off a cliff, because the median household income is 75 grand. And what about a dual income household? What about, mom and dad making 75,000 each, bumping it up to 150 grand? Well, if we do that and bump it up to 150 grand, and let's say they only have $1,000 per month in debt and they have a $38,000 down payment, so we doubled everything. That means they could afford a house up to $485,000. Now that's pretty good. That's above the median home price throughout the country. So that means you could buy in almost any market, excluding the most expensive areas of whatever market. Even here in Little Rock, I've seen houses that are over $1 million when I was looking on the map, but most of them fall into the median range. So if you can buy a house of $500,000, then that means you can live almost anywhere. So that's pretty good. But the problem is, do mom and dad each make $75,000? Well, according to the census data, they don't. And the other thing that we need to look at here is I also put in a 40% debt to income ratio on both of these affordability calculators, which suggests that people are already spreading themselves pretty thin to get into these homes, guys. Whether you're a $75,000 household income or 150, you know, that's a 40% debt to income ratio. It means like close to half of your monthly income is going towards just the house payment. So that's pretty significant, especially since they will qualify you based on your gross income, not your net income. So I thought it'd be interesting to bring that up because, you know, it's ironic that most people say they only need to make $75,000 a year to feel happy, but I would assume that means you need to make that much individually in order to be happy, because that's the only way the numbers really work out for most people. You need to make $75,000 a year individually and have a dual income household, and then you'll be a-okay. You'll be able to afford to live in most places pretty comfortably, especially if you buy below what you're able to buy, because just because they tell you can buy a $485,000 house doesn't mean you have to, guys. You could live in a place like this and buy a nice house for $350,000 that's nicer than these houses we're looking at here, and still have that payment be well within your range of affordability. So it's all about understanding what you can buy for the money and not going above and beyond, and that's how people get ahead in life. Now that I've been out here for a while, it actually feels really good, you know, being out here in the sun, it's warming up a little bit. It was pretty chilly earlier. So here we have a house for sale, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $280,000. Looks a little bit old, and what do you know? It's another flip. They bought it back in 2021 for $241,500, and now are trying to sell it for $280,000. It just hit the market about a week ago, so who knows if it'll sell. But how much money are you really going to make selling this house for $40,000 more after all your closing costs and commissions? Not really that much, I would imagine, unless maybe they actually need to sell this house. Although the property taxes here in Little Rock are still pretty good at only $2,700 a year for a house like this. Not bad. If this house was in Texas, that property tax bill would be close to $6 grand. Here's one last thing I wanted to share with you guys before we go today, and that is how much the foreign investor sales have been dropping off a cliff since 2017. Now, first of all, I would say this probably doesn't really apply much to Miami, because Miami, literally like half of the home sales there are bought by foreign investors. It's been that way for a really long time. It's still that way today. But on a nationwide scale, things have calmed down by quite a bit. And thanks to my viewer, Walt, he sent me this chart that actually one of his real estate agents shared with him. And here's what it shows. It shows 3 different things. It shows the number of transactions, the sales volume in dollars, and the percent of unit sales, and you can see they all track hand in hand and they're all going down. And so a lot of people like to blame the fact that, you know, there's too many foreign investors in this country that are buying up all of our real estate, and for a while that was true, but you can tell ever since 2020 that's been coming down pretty substantially. Whether or not this suggests that foreigners don't have the money either anymore, or it suggests that they don't look at the USA as a good investment, I don't know. But it's an interesting trend to pay attention to, because there's a lot of people that think that this is the reason why real estate is unaffordable in this country, and it looks like that's only part of the picture. But here's the thing, guys, if you're tired of foreigners buying up all of our real estate, I guess you're in luck, because that's not really happening so much anymore. And it looks like the trend kind of ticked up a little bit again here in 2023, not anywhere near the levels that it was pre-pandemic. So who knows where that's going to go in the future. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.